In 2022, I flew back and forth to Los Angeles, California 15 times. For work, not for business meetings or as a flight attendant or because LA Kush is better than Colorado Kush, but as an esports desk analyst. I worked the 2022 North American League for Rainbow Six Siege out of a studio in LA for 3 5-week sprints at various points throughout the year. I'd fly in at the start of a week, work 2 days on camera, fly back midweek, spend time at home crunching numbers and prepping for the next week, and then repeat. For 15 weeks out of the year. And since the only side of it you ever get to see is what gets shown on broadcast, today I thought I'd take you behind the curtain and show you what it's like to be a Tier 1 esports desk analyst from the other side of the camera. And maybe explain why I've been gone for the past 5 months. But before we dive into this year, we're gonna try and bring this channel back from the dead, so we need the algorithm to like us again. Drop a like on this video and leave any questions you have in the comments, because God knows I couldn't fit everything I wanted to talk about into one video. That said,
let's just jump into it.
My definition of a desk analyst is an entertainer breaking down a game with context, conversation, and conciseness. I like leaving it pretty bare bones like this because essentially every analyst falls into this definition somewhere, but everyone who's ever done the job also gets to put their own spin on it. Some like doing deep research and laying a groundwork of statistics about each team. Some like being a hot take machine and making bold, absolute statements about how they think the game will go. Some love getting into the nitty-gritty and breaking down everything they see in exacting detail. And as far as I'm concerned, all of them are notable aspects of the job, but I care most about making the audience understand how something is important and why. More generally, I like to focus on story beats and breaking them down into layman's terms, focusing a lot on the big picture to help nail the reasons that you should care about the game that you're watching. Delivering story context, keeping points concise, and presenting it conversationally to drive it home to the viewers. This works well because my broadcast duo Jesse focuses more on the statistical trends and exact information.
TSM, FaZe Clan, Malvinas, Phoenix Esports, Ninja Pajamas, Team 1, W7M, Team 1 again, Santos Esports, NIP.
Leaving me to hone in on the generalities and the storylines as my primary focus. I could easily talk about theory like this all day, and we will a little closer to the end of the video, but with all of this context in mind, we need to talk about how last year went first. What? With esports and most sports broadcasting jobs in general, there's usually 2 ways for on-camera talent to do their jobs. In person, usually in a studio environment with most tech located in the same place, or remotely, with talent working wherever and sending in a video feed to wherever the show is being broadcast from. In 2021, most in-studio work was shut down due to the pandemic, so production companies shifted to mostly remote broadcasts. That's how the Rainbow Six North American League began its lifespan, in fact, with talent working from home on their own setups and sending webcam signals into the studio. So for a while, my home setup looked a lot like this. And just for reference, this is more often than not what I'm looking like. A Sony a6000. We actually are streaming our feed directly to an RTMP server, which has all of our program feed up on it. This is the riveting content that you've all subscribed for. It's actually not that massive. I've had ones that were considerably bigger. It doesn't fill up. Like, oh, by the way, free feed picture, welcome. Slide it into the corner, it's out of the way. Usually there isn't daylight outside. Oh, there is a little bit. Now, remote work is not ideal for several reasons, but chief among them is the delay preventing everyone from syncing up perfectly. Nearly every member of talent was in a different city at the time, so we didn't have consistency in connection latency. It causes a lot of troubleshooting, it can be a nightmare for engineers, and in the case of the NAL desk, can lead to synergy issues between members of talent trying to communicate together or have a conversation. For example, when talking to my cohorts Jesse and Veli on the desk, sometimes there'd be moments where we'd interrupt each other trying to deliver analysis or make certain points. This kind of thing made it pretty obvious after a while that we would have to structure who said what and when in such a way that we wouldn't be tripping over each other. Not only is that not the way that humans normally have a conversation, but it made segments feel super robotic at times. It's what we had to do during the pandemic, but still, it wasn't a super fun experience. But in esports, remote broadcasting is sometimes the norm for leagues that don't have bigger budgets or aren't the pinnacle of competition for their respective game. The LCS, as a Tier 1 league for League of Legends, merits that in-studio workplace, but LCS Proving Grounds, the Tier 2 league just below it, is usually always remote. The NAL in 2021 was pushed remote out of necessity, but we persisted and kept hoping we'd be able to transition to a studio eventually.
All right, well, thank you very much. It's time for our very first matchup.
And in August of that year, the chance came. I got to work my first LAN event in person at the Mexico Major, and at the start of 2022, I'd fly to Stockholm, Sweden for the 6 Invitational. So before the start of the NAL for this year, I'd gotten lots of hours under my belt, both in person and online. But nothing could have prepped me for what was about to come in the remainder of the year. Wow.
Oh, that looks...
We said don't.
Welcome to LA, I guess. The 2022 NAL season was probably one of the nuttier things I've done in my life. A job requiring weekly travel, talking on camera about people who play video games for a living, doing deep statistical research, and eating at nice places in LA on a regular basis. This was my job a little over 2 years ago, and now it's this. It's crazy that it's come to this, but like any other job, there's still a huge amount of time and sanity that goes into doing it well. And in this case, not only would I be leaving home on long stretches, but there would be a lot of other things I would have to learn how to micromanage in order to survive this year. In stage 1, Jesse and I had to learn a flow with a new host, as we'd never worked with Doa before. But that stage, we also had a lot of talent changes. Some people got sick or had visa issues, so we brought up lots of the Challenger League guys to fill in on some days, and I even swapped over to hosting for a week.
TSM versus Astralis. We'll jump straight in. John Mullen and Sam Stewart with the call.
But this kind of thing definitely wasn't normal, and oftentimes we'd find ourselves chafing at some of the interruptions we had. In stage 2, Jesse, Doa, and I started getting our flow, but pros and coaches were also brought in this stage as guest analysts, which means we had to focus less on our trio chemistry to make room for somebody else to also have the floor. Stage 3 comes along, and... well... So these are the digs. It's like every other hotel room you've probably ever seen, but in a second I'm going to convert it to what it looks like when a gamer lives in it, so right about now. Here's what the average week would look like. I'd fly in on Monday, broadcast days on Tuesday and Wednesday, fly home on Thursday, break day with a production call usually on Friday, and prep days for Saturday and Sunday. Because my flights to LA were only 2 hours in one direction, this essentially split my weeks right in half. I would be home for half the week, and then I'd be traveling and in California for the other half. I wasn't able to get all of my prep done before leaving the house for this leg of the journey, so it's prep time. So it's about 7:58 a.m. We've got a call time in roughly 45 minutes. I also woke up with a little bit of like extra gunk in my throat for some reason, so I'm hoping that breakfast and talking a little bit more helps to fix that a bit.
There he is.
What's up, dude?
What's up?
You vlogging?
Yeah, I brought it back. Say hi. The internet loves you.
Dude, I landed last night, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like scrolling through my timeline, and I see this retweet from Emmy. It has 4 likes.
Yeah.
It's been up for 11 hours. And I'm like, fuck it. I'll send a reply.
Yeah. You ratioed her ass,
I
dude.
did.
Like
I
hardcore.
Did. Hey, it's a kid.
There he is.
How's it going, dude?
He's here. Well, this guy. How's it going?
Honestly, it might seem like it's a lot behind the scenes to kind of like calibrate and everything, and with the lights and the jib shot and like the telestrator and everything, there are a lot of moving pieces to it, but it's not that complex at the end of the day. This is Control Room B. This is where we are at when we're watching the games. The top monitor is always the program feed, so what we're watching that gets output to the stream, and because we're working with the LAN build, we have 2 observers, and the second observer is always an overhead feed that we put just below it. I'd say I probably spend maybe 90% of us watching games watching the overhead, just because there's more information that you can glean. You're always able to like look at positions more effectively. We're bringing the vlog back, kids. Say hi. No. Say hi. Say hi, Sam.
I don't want to say hi. I don't want to say hi,
Sam.
No.
John.
Hi.
Hi everyone, this is Luca.
Sorry.
It's our stage manager guy. Yep. Who does basically everything we need him to, like no matter when we ask, he always does it.
That is true. That is true. And I bring him churros and hot chalky because he's my little ooh boy. Ain't that right, Jacob?
I didn't say that.
Okay, guys, lots of energy, lots of talking. Woo!
Your typical broadcast day starts with a pre-show talking about lots of minor points for the day to come, a pre-game segment for match 1, then we go to Control Room B to watch the game, come back out for the post-game segment, and then repeat 4 more times throughout the day. In this job, you're locked in the entire day and have to stay focused, which means even things like snacking have to be done strategically to make sure you don't tire yourself out. That also did apply to working remote shows, but when you add air travel, Ubers, and sleeping in a hotel as opposed to your own bed, the fatigue can start building up fairly quickly.
Someone help Koi! Asian! Asian, help him! Help him! What is he doing?
Oh my god.
He died. They're gonna win this round, but they don't deserve to.
No way, man.
Welcome back to the Rainbow Six North American League. Here at the Analyst Desk, your host Doe here with Jesse Jacob and our special guest Penguin. And over in Las Vegas, we have none other than the victorious Bolo joining us from Team TSM after their win over Oxygen. And yeah, that one maybe was a little bit closer, I think, than you guys expected, but you got it done.
And that's day 1 done. Morning.
Hello. Is there any kind of like any kind of comparison when you get to it, unless you're doing it right now, about OXG Beast Coast that you think would make it worthwhile? Because
OXG Beast Coast.
There's so much about that game that feels like it'd be good to touch on, but I don't know how much. Good morning. I'm good.
Wednesday follows a lot of the same process from Tuesday, though fatigue management is definitely something I pay more attention to on the second day. To be constantly focused through a whole day on back-to-back days is oftentimes a challenge, but it's part of the job, so you either watch everything closely or you die. Then once Wednesday's done, so are we, and that's an actual relaxation night, so...
Yeah, I'm not that great at recording footage. And I also realized that I somehow didn't have a whole bunch of space left on this SD card. So day 2 didn't have a lot. Now we're done. That's it. It's like 9:30. I specifically don't get flights back to Denver until later in the day on Thursdays, because I actually want, after 2 straight days of long broadcasts, to have more time to rest the day immediately after, and then I'll end up getting home around, I don't know, like late evening, and then it takes me about an hour to get back to my house from the airport. Today is kind of a long day, but it's mostly just rest plus travel.
Takes like 20 minutes every time. Food, and then breakfast.
That is food. That
So, now the season is over. No more flights to LA, no more hotel breakfast, no more Ubers. We are finished with it all. If I had to sum up everything about this year, I think the best way to describe it is like one pro and one con that came out of everything. The pro, obviously, working with everybody in person, is communication. I could directly talk to our producer, our director, our replay team, look my desk mates in the eyes while talking to them on the show, and actually get to spend time with the team and my cohorts that make this entire broadcast come together. Taking the human element out of the show with it all being remote was a slog compared to how freeing it was to work with everybody in the flesh. But the big con is that it basically turned this year into a game of survival. 1 week included 2 travel days, 2 long broadcast days, and a weekend that needed to be filled with preparation and additional focus on the league that I couldn't really take my eyes away from it for long. It's why I haven't uploaded to this channel very much in the last 5 months, because this has taken way more focus and brain power and also necessitated a lot more recovery time than I ever could have anticipated. Now, I don't want that to sound like it's a complaint, because everything I've talked about is just something that you have to do because that's what the job requires. But it definitely does force you to do a lot of fast growing up in order to be able to adapt to what is essentially running on fumes. I also didn't have the longest amount of travel, considering all of us were based in different areas in North America. Like for me, a flight from Denver is 2 hours, but when you factor in the amount of travel everybody had to do, there's just so much fatigue that's involved there. And I also guess that this is just a part of the industry in general. Like I remember watching a Counter-Strike documentary talking about some of their talent and how back before COVID, when there was all these different events to go to, it often meant that you were traveling from event to event, and sometimes you didn't even get the benefit of visiting home. And I guess in the case of like traditional sports commentators, there also is the idea that you're traveling from city to city constantly to keep on covering all of these games. Like I'm thinking NFL games week to week. So this seems like, if nothing else, it's just a small taste of what the industry is meant to provide, because that's just kind of how it's always been. But the upsides are there. Like I've learned so much about data consolidation, spreadsheet mechanics, story delivery, and fatigue management. And I think what we delivered on the NAL was a good representation of the state of the league, which is honestly all you can really ask for. But there is one last thing I want to bring up. Desks often become the forgotten segment on sports broadcasts because most of what people care about is the game. So when it's not on, it's about finding a way to keep an audience engaged until it comes back. Lots of people think that the only way to do this is by filling a desk with people who have a professional background in that game, because they have the trust factor that is common with people who have experience in their field. But it's not the only route. Remember the definition that I used. An entertainer breaking down a game with context, conversation, and conciseness. That entertainment could come from anybody, regardless of their background or relative expertise, so long as they're good enough. There isn't any guarantee that an ex-pro is going to be as engaging on a broadcast as somebody with actual analyst experience, and it works both ways. Making an analyst desk entertaining and worthwhile does not mean only catering to the hardcore fans of the game, nor does it mean dumbing it down so the only people who glean any insight from it are the casual fans. Catering to one side or the other isn't helpful, so it's healthy to have a balance of both. Whether it happens through story points, telestration, stats comparisons, insane hot takes, stunts, costumes, or embarrassing yourself on live television, you just have to find a way to make an analyst desk yours without conforming to the exact formula that's set by somebody else. In that way, the job is kind of an art form, but anybody can do it provided they've got something special about their approach and they're keeping their viewers engaged throughout.
Go forth, play some games, be excellent to each other. We'll see you next time.
That's all from me. Obviously, this is a much different style of video from anything I've tried on this channel before, but it's an experiment that I want to keep tweaking and see if I can't do with some other subjects down the road. If you have any questions about anything to do with this analyst process, please leave them below. I'd love to answer them because there's so much context that I could not smash all into one video at the same time. And because I've been gone for a while, it might be a bit before the channel gets back into the algorithm's good graces, so I never ask for likes or anything, but please hit the like button, and we'll see if we can't try and salvage this thing. So, I've been gone for a while, but thanks for welcoming me back. I'll see you later. Peace.